So the UFC month of August has just wrapped up. We've entered September, so I thought it would be a good time to recap the 30 days of August or 31, whatever it is, and look through the 4 UFC cards that occurred, review some numbers, go over my picks for the month, and then I'll give my nominations and winners for the 6 categories of performance of the month, moment of the month, KO, submission of the month, fight of the month, and then at the end of the video, the event of the month. So we're going to go through all of that in today's video, but I just wanted to start off by just going through some numbers. So a clean 50 fights in the month of August. 25 of them, exactly half, went to decision. 16 of them were finished by TKO or KO, and 9 of them were finished by submission. So it was a good month, entertaining month of August for the finishes, for the fights. And let's go through my picks as well. So I went 36 out of 50 for the month. That was a 72% prediction rate. So pretty solid there. I think that's up from my month of July, maybe, but I'm not too sure. For UFC Fight Night Sandhagen versus Font, I got 7 out of 12. Fight Night Luque versus Dos Santos, I got 11 out of 13. That was my best card of the month. UFC 292, the pay-per-view, I got 8 out of 12. And then I closed it off at UFC Fight Night Singapore Holloway versus Zombie. I got 10 out of 13. So pretty solid on the picks there. And I went 3 out of 4 on main events. The only one I got wrong was UFC 292. I did not predict Sean O'Malley to KO Aljamain Sterling. But still, solid on the picks. Very happy with that. Let's move on to the first category, and it's going to be the performance of the month. So 5 nominations, and then I'll give my winner. You guys can let me know if you agree or disagree. The first nomination is Zhang Weili's domination over Amanda Lemos at UFC 292. Incredible performance, extremely dominant. Zhang Weili came in as the champion, bit of pressure on her shoulders, had to deliver a good performance, and she did so. She outlanded Amanda Lemos by about 250 strikes. I believe she would have set the female strawweight strike record, maybe women's title fight record as well. Incredible domination. Didn't get the finish, but still, basically had Lemos no moments in this fight. She just smoked her the whole time. The next nomination, Ian Gary Schools, Neil Magny. Really impressive performance from Gary. 30-24 on one judge's scorecard. It was great to watch. Didn't get the finish either. But my sort of category for this is not the finishes, not the KOs or the submissions. They've got their own categories. It's more the whole performance. This is more to shine a light on those that didn't get a finish, but still had an incredible performance. So Ian Gary, but Neil Magny had 0 moments. He actually had no success in this fight. It was one-way traffic all in, Gary just schooling him on the feet the whole time. Almost finished him at multiple moments, so good stuff from him. The next one is Luque returning against RDA and having a pretty clean 49-46 decision. I picked him to win. He came back after a year off. There was a lot of headlines, a lot of talks about his brain bleed against Jeff Neal, about the injury that he suffered. Would he be the same when he came back? He came back, refined version of himself, started grappling, and had a pretty impressive performance over RDA. So solid win from Luque there. The next one is Holloway making easy work of the Zombie. It was a sad performance to watch, but an impressive one nonetheless. It was what was expected, to be honest. I expected this to go a little bit longer and a lot more strikes to be landed, and it was going to be all Holloway. But it was a pretty fun fight. You're going to see this fight featured multiple times throughout this video for other categories. But impressive from Holloway. Dropped him at multiple times, was better on the feet, and got the finish in the third. And then the last one was Rinya Nakamura's performance against Fernie Garcia, also on the same card of Holloway versus Zombie. This was incredible performance. This just showed the level of Rinya Nakamura's grappling and how good this guy is on the ground. So it was good to watch from him. But ultimately, the winner, I've got Zhang Weili beating Amanda Lemos as the best performance of the month. The UFC gave her a performance bonus for a decision win. That's how you know it was an amazing performance. So, really impressive from her. Absolutely schooled Amanda Lemos, gave her no moments, and it was great to watch. Let's move on. The next category is the submission of the month. There were lots of good submissions, 9 of them in the month of August. Lots of impressive ones, different techniques being used, and I'm going to go through my 5 most impressive submissions of the month. So the first nomination is Diego Lopez proves he's legit. He submitted Gavin Tucker in the first round in just over a minute 30. Got the triangle, kind of jumped into it, armbar triangle sort of, and just walked off at the end after he rolled over into mount. So that was an incredible submission from Diego Lopez. The next submission, Blackshear wraps up the twister. This was crazy to see. Early prelims of the fight night, Apex card, not a lot of eyes on it, but he delivered anyway, and he went on to fight again at UFC 292 the week after. So interesting month for Blackjack. He definitely had a few headlines in this month, but the twister he got over, not the most high level opposition, a debuting guy, but still, this was an incredible win from Damon Blackshear in the first round. Got a twister, crazy to see. The next one was Corrine Silver gets the tap with a second to go. She submitted Myra Morose in the first round with a minute, with not with a minute, with 1 second to go. It was an impressive guillotine, really tight. Um, and I picked her to win by round one sub. So little extra bonus feature from left lane because got my pick right. So I was made to look good on that fight. The next one is Carlston Harris puts Wells to sleep in a comeback. Who was getting dominated in the grappling for all of this fight against Jeremiah Wells at UFC Nashville. But he came back in the third. He got taken down again, but ended up on top and secured an arm triangle. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's fine, he's fine." And then the ref stops it, and he's out. Like Jeremiah Wells is just out cold stiff. From an arm triangle, so that was crazy to see from Harris. Got a performance bonus. He was losing the whole fight, but came back with the arm triangle. So impressive from him. And the last nomination is Kurt Hollabaugh wins the Ultimate Fighter with a triangle against Austin Hubbard. This was an impressive win. He did a lot better than a lot of people expected in this fight. I think Hubbard was the favorite, but Hollabaugh got it done by triangle. But ultimately, it's not going to matter because my winner was Damon Blackshear securing the twister. Look, when it happened, Diego Lopez, I was like, oh, that's for sure going to end up being sub of the month. Next week later, this guy gets a fucking twister. Um, so Diego Lopez was a real close second. In terms of what was the most exciting to watch, it was definitely Lopez with the crowd. He got the big cheer. But Blackshear, when you get the third twister in UFC history, you're going to have a spot on the submission of the month and perhaps one of the subs of the year as well. So great stuff from him. Um, Moving on to the KO of the month. There were some crazy KOs in this month of August. Some flatline KOs, some impressive TKOs, and just some violence to celebrate. So here are the five nominations. Khalil Roundtree sleeps Chris Daukaus. He did it for the BLM movement. He had to sleep the cop. All jokes aside, it was a crazy fucking KO from Roundtree. Picked him to win by first round KO. Had him in a parlay, so that was good from him. But ultimately, impressive stuff from Khalil Roundtree. Got him out of there in the first round. Violent combination to put him away. The next one is O'Malley wins the belt against Sterling. Dropped him with a counter right and put him down, and then finished it off with hammer fists in the second round. The most monumental KO of the month, certainly. Um, was it the most clean or the flatline KO? No, just because of the fact that there was ground and pounds, which I usually don't like. But this one was just too crazy to not include in this category. The next one is Holloway Sleep Zombie. Really sad moment, but still impressive KO nonetheless. Zombie was rushing in, trying to make something happen in the third round. Needed to kind of have a crack, but Holloway was just all over it. He countered him and put him down and out with a right hand. So violent stuff from Max Holloway. Next one was Junior Tafa's KO over the GOAT, Parker Porter. Upset for the ages. No one could have seen this coming. Parker Porter looks like one of the most unbeatable fighters in the sport today. Um, but regardless, yeah. So, Junior Tafa, crazy KO, impressive. Looked good for like basically a minute and a half. He got it done, and yeah, clean combinations. Got him with the knees, the elbows, and just landed some really nice shots and put him out of there. So good stuff from Junior Tafa. And the final nomination was RoboCop Violence. So this one, bit of an interesting one. Not a KO on the feet. This was Gregory Rodriguez taking down Dennis Tallulah in the first round and just absolutely putting the leather on him with elbows, putting that bone to his face, and just absolutely sleeping Dennis Tallulah. And it was violent stuff from RoboCop. But look, the winner, it's got to be O'Malley. Was it the most clean? It was the most clean in terms of if that had finished there, that's like KO of the year. But the fact that it was just like about 15 seconds of ground and pound afterwards took away from it a little bit, but the moment was crazy, and it's just too nuts to not include. So O'Malley wins the KO of the month. Let's go to the moment of the month. So for this one, it's not necessarily the happiest moment or the craziest moment or the best KO or anything like that. It's more just like the headlines, the things that came out of the month of August, the things that people were talking about. And I believe these five were the kind of biggest stories, I guess. Obviously, the ones on the pay per view, Ian Gary, all that, he's not featured, but biggest story, yeah. But I kind of wanted to go with one per card as well. So the first nomination is The Zombie Retires. Absolute fan favorite legend goes out in front of his home kind of fans in Singapore. It was super emotional. The final walk from that he made back from the octagon was just emotional. It was sad. It was happy. It was all of the good things that you like to see in a retirement. And we just got to celebrate the career of a UFC legend. So emotional to see, but an incredible moment. The next nomination is A Superstar Breaks Through. It's Sean O'Malley winning the belt against Aljamain Sterling. Not talking about just the KO here, but just how crazy it is to see Sean O'Malley as champion after fighting Peter Yan in a close decision. People saying it was corporate favoritism. He didn't deserve the title shot. He didn't deserve to be where he was. Um, to then get a crazy KO finish and win the belt, and is now the undisputed champion. Crazy stuff from Sean O'Malley. The next one, little bit of an interesting one. It's the Swanson versus Dowdu decision. So bit obscure, but I did remember this fight. It was a 29. No, it was a unanimous decision for Cub Swanson, 29-28 across the board. Um, and he didn't even think he won. That's the only reason why this is featured. Look, I'm not going to cry robbery, but whenever there's a decision in the co-main event of a fight night, or the co-main event of anything, or a feature kind of spot, with a bit of eyes on it, a legend like Cub Swanson, who everyone likes, who was a underdog, showed out, looked good, but the decision was red, and he was clapping, gesturing to Dowdu. He did not think he won, and he said as much post-fight. So that was a bit of an interesting one. It's rare that you see a fighter not actually think that they won a fight. That the judges gave them. So that was interesting. The next one is, oh, you're a wrestler now. It was just Corey Sanhagen and his performance against Rob Font. It was an impressive performance, and I had no issue with him being a grappler for that fight, with him dealing with a dangerous boxer in Rob Font by grappling. But just the moment and the talking of people saying like Corey Sandhagen's boring, this was the worst fight ever, like crazy stuff to me, which I disagree with. But still, it was a headline that did appear and was talked about for a few days or a week, whatever. The last nomination is Lopez getting a pop in Nashville. It was Diego Lopez's submission moment against Gavin Tucker, not just for the submission, but after the debut this guy had against Movsar Evloev, after that amazing fight, which won fight of the night in May, in that UFC card in May, um, came back, had a lot of fans behind him, had the support, and then he comes in against Gavin Tucker, who's a solid fighter, and submits him in one of the most electric ways that I've seen someone wrap up a sub. Walk-off submission, not even a walk-off KO, a walk-off submission. Jumped across the cage, went up to Dana, said, "I'm here," slapped everyone's hands. It was crazy. The crowd loved him. He got on top of the cage. So this was a really cool moment, which I enjoyed. And Diego Lopez is one of the guys to watch, in my opinion, in the featherweight division. Um, Next category is the fight of the month. There were some incredible scraps in the month of August. Not The funny thing is, out of the four cards here, only two cards actually gave out fight of the night bonuses. But I've found five fights which I thought deserved the mention. So first one, Katona and Gibson go to war for tough for the Ultimate Fighter. The bantamweight finale. This was an incredible fight, one of the best fights of the year. And I just loved every second of it. Non-stop action, just output the whole time, and it was crazy. The next one, Billy Q and Damon Jackson have a scrap in Nashville. This was just fun. Like, I just enjoyed this fight. It was cool. Damon Jackson was winning moments. Billy Q came back. Jackson was tired. He looked like he was going to get him finished. It was just a fun fight. The next one was Holloway and Zombie putting on a show in Singapore. This was a great fight. Didn't go long. Obviously, Holloway got the finish, but still a scrap. Both guys had moments. Zombie was dropped earlier and survived. Holloway wrapped up a DAS, which looked in. So great fight there. Then the next two, I kind of had to search a little bit. Look, there weren't. I'll be honest, there weren't five absolute banger fight of the year candidates, but these next two were just solid and had moments. So the next one is Anthony Smith rallying against Ryan Spann. This was a pretty fun fight. Look, moments of it dull, but Span almost had him finished in the second. Smith came back. It was a close fight, worth a mention. And then the next one was GM3 takes it to Petrosky. This was a fun fight on the early prelims of UFC 292. Look, it had its moments of being boring. The grappling, just lay and play was not it. But few submission attempts from either side. Petrosky rocked GM3. GM3 had moments where he was working Petrosky. So a solid fight there. But ultimately, this was probably one of the easier categories to decide. Fight of the month, clearly Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson. This was reminiscent of Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner. Probably the best tough fight since then, the best tough finale. This was just crazy. Non-stop output. I don't know how they just both didn't gas. It was a crazy fight. But the final category, let's go to the event of the month. So four events took place in the month of August. We had UFC Fight Night Sandhagen vs. Font, which featured Tatiana Suarez getting a submission. Dustin Jacoby got a KO. Lopez had an exciting sub. Um, Carlston Harris got a sub. Billy Q vs. Damon Jackson was a scrap. Durden vs. Hadley, the second round of that fight was crazy. Go back and rewatch that. And then Asu Elmabayev got a submission to open up the card. So solid card there in Nashville. The next one, Vicente Luque versus RDA, Apex Fight Night. Gonna take a hit because it was in the Apex because there's not a lot of name value, but every single fight on the prelims was a finish, and there ended up being 9 out of 13 finishes on this card. Um, Khalil got a KO, Lucindo got a sub, Luana Santos got a TKO, Marcus McGee KO, McKinney TKO, Bulgarian TKO, Martin Bidet got a sub, Amarim got a TKO, and Blackji got a twister. 9 finishes was the most on a card in the month of August. So worth a mention. It's not going to win fight. It's not going to win part of the month, but in terms of just what had the most unexpected moments and which card actually turned out to be better than expected, definitely this one worth a mention. The next one is UFC 292 O'Malley versus Sterling. Real exciting card. It's a pay per view. It's always going to get that boost. If you look at the fights on paper, only had 4 subs. O'Malley's KO was electric. Robocop had some violence. Holloway got the sub, and then Kareem Silva got the sub as well. So only 4 finishes. But it had some good performances like Whaley and Gary. And then Katona vs Gibson was a great fight. So none of the card was boring, but there weren't too many finishes. But still, a really fun card and the highs were super high. Probably like one of the craziest moments of the year and one of the best fights of the year on this card. The last category, the last event of the month, Holloway vs Zombie had 7 finishes. A lot of them came on the prelims. Max Holloway got the KO. Tafa KO. Cortez Acosta got the KO. Armfield, McKell, Gaff, and Aldrich all got TKOs/KOs there. So exciting stuff in UFC Singapore. Real fun card, but a few of the decisions on a few of the fights on the card that went decision just slowed it down just a bit, but still a solid card. But ultimately, you got to go with UFC 292 for the event of the month. Just the fact that it's a pay per view, the main event made it what it was. No other card delivered a moment like O'Malley's KO. And then still like Zhang Weili dominance, Gary Cheeto Vera fight was alright. Robocop was crazy. Weidman Tavares was solid. Holloway got a sub. Katona Gibson, Kareem Silva submission. Natalia Silva dominated. Petrosky versus GM3 was solid. So solid card there. It's got to win just because of the main card, the KO at the end of it. So those are all of the that's August. That's the month of August now. It's the 4th of September. We've just had a great Paris card, which I got 11 out of 0 on, but 11 and 0 on, swept that card. But those are my categories. Let me know if you agree in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be UFC 293 predictions. Peace.